Hello, welcome back. We are back on something a little bit different today, but we're going to be ranking our Premier League teams for the upcoming season. We're going to be predicting. We've got a nice little tier list here to see who we're going to predict first. So let's get straight into it. Okay, in 20th, dead last, we have Burnley. Now, I'm going to give you a list of the players they've brought in and a list of the players they've sold. So some players they brought in Amanda Brozier, Ugachukwu, Dubravka, Jacob Larson, who's a player from Stuttgart, I believe. Kyle Walker, who's Premier League proven, but is well beyond his time. They brought in Twanzebe. Uh, I mean, Vice or Vice. They brought in Edwards on a permanent, which is quite a good deal, I believe. But the players that have left are James Trafford, Brownhill, which is a bit of a shocking one, really, considering I thought he's actually one of the better players. And my reason for giving them 20th is they don't have enough Premier League experience, which, I mean, you can counteract with Kyle Walker and Dubravka and Broja, but it's not at an acceptable age. Broja's still pretty good, but, I mean, he's had a lot of injuries in his career. Kyle Walker's past it, and Dubravka's not been a number one for years. Also, the manager, Scott Parker, doesn't really have a great record in the Premier League. So that's why I'm giving them 20th. Okay, and in 19th, I am going for Leeds. Big old Leeds United. Some of the players they brought in Perry, 16 mil, Stack for 20 mil. Sean Longstaff is actually a pretty good, decent player for like 14 mil. This is all Euros. Goodmanson is a fullback, 11 mil, centre back in that Bournemouth. Nemecha, who's a striker, he got released on a free, so they brought him. Players that have left: Firpo, Christensen, Woba. Now I'm pretty sure Christensen and Woba didn't actually play for Leeds that much last season, or if at all. I'm pretty sure they were both loaned out. But again, the reason why they got 19th is their manager is not very good at this level. Not very good at all. But also, they've brought abroad. And Sean Longstaff's the only one with Premier League experience, really. And he's not the best midfielder, so that's why I think they're going to get 19th. Now, in 18th, I've gone for Brentford. Brentford, some of the players they brought in Jordan Henderson, Donovan, who's a striker, never heard of him before. I believe he was from Birmingham. Kelleher, who's actually a really decent goalkeeper, and a fullback who they loaned in before, I believe. They've sold Embuemo, Norgard. They let Ben Mee go on a free. They let Flecken go for 10 mil. The reason I've put them 18th is because they still have a chance to lose Wissa. I don't think they have enough up top, enough firepower. Defensively, I reckon they'll be okay. They've also lost their manager as well. But they're a well-run club like Brighton. But the difference with them and Brighton is that Brighton actually changed their manager, and they've got a little bit of a history with it. Brentford haven't changed their manager yet, and I mean he's a set piece coach, if I believe correctly. But with how well run the club is, they could have amazing players, and they could finish anywhere like 15th or a bit higher than that. That's the reason for putting them in 18th. Okay, in 17th, I have put Sunderland. Now, one of the first time in 2 seasons or 3 seasons technically that I've put a promoted club to stay up. Now they've done quite a lot of business, quite a lot of good business as well. They've got a player called Omar, who's a centre back for 11 mil. Arthur Masuaku, he's got Premier League experience with West Ham. They've got Gui, is a young striker. They've got a new goalkeeper, Granit Xhaka, who I think would be the reason they stay up. Adingra, they brought in as well. Quite cheap as well. So, even if he does go down to the Championship, they could flog him on for more easily. Telebi, he's a winger. Ronaldo, who used to play at Atletico Madrid, the Simeone way, the tough defensiveness. So I reckon he'll be good. They brought Diarra from Strasbourg, and then Enzo Lefebvre, who's a defensive midfielder. Now, they did lose Joe Bellingham. but they got a lot of money for him, and they've spent that money quite well. So I don't think that'll be too much of an issue. They sold Tom Watson as well, who I'm not too familiar. I've not watched too much Sunderland before, really. The reason for surviving, I think they will survive by the skin of their teeth because they've got good Premier League captain, which is a keyword, captain, experience in Granit Xhaka, as well as strengthening in a lot of positions that they needed. That is why I think they'll finish 17th and survive. Okay, in 16th, I have put Fulham. I think Fulham are going to have an absolute stinker this year due to the fact they haven't brought anyone. Like players in, they brought Lecomte for €500,000. They brought in a backup goalkeeper. They've let go Willian, Carlos Vinicius, and Tom Kearney. Three pretty big players, I will say. And as always, the transfer window is still open, so they can still get players. But I don't think they've lost three massive Prem experience players. But I think the rest of the squad has enough Premier League experience to the point where they will survive with a bit of comfort. I don't think they will be in danger. I think they'll be like 5 to 10 points clear. Maybe even a little bit less. But I think it's going to be a very long, drawn out, boring season for Fulham fans. Maybe like a quarter final of a cup or something. Now, in 15th, I've put Wolves. Now, the players Wolves have brought in, they brought in a player called Elofi Arias, who I believe is from Fluminense. Strand Larsen's now permanent, and Lopez. The players they've lost are Guedes, Sarabia, Dawson, like big Craig Dawson, Semedo, Doyle, Ain't Nori, and Cunha. Now, the reason I put them 15th is I think they've got a very good manager. I think he's a very decent manager. Not top level, but I think he's a decent manager. I think the reason they'll be low is because I think they'll struggle to score goals. But I don't think there's any threat of them going down. Despite being in the bottom, like the bottom tiers, I don't think there'll be any threat at all in them going down. Okay, next up we have is Bournemouth in 14th. Now, the players Bournemouth brought in Diakite. I think that's how you say it. 35 mil, Petrovic for 29 mil, and Truffett for 13 mil. The players they've lost is Zaberni. Neto's actually left now, despite being online. Travers is left as well, who was the backup goalkeeper. Kirkes is left, Aarons is left, and Dean Huyson is left. Now, the reason I think they'll finish 14th is I don't think they will struggle to score goals, but with how decimated they've been in defence, I think that's where they will struggle the most. They've lost so many central defenders and defenders in general that I think it's going to be hard to get the consistency and the chemistry between the defenders to link up. Okay, now in 13th we have West Ham. Now, the players West Ham have brought in Hermanson from Leicester, Callum Wilson, who on his day could be a good striker, Cole Walker-Peters, which is a bit of a weird one because they've got Wan-Bissaka. They've got Diouf, who's listed as a left mid here, but I believe he's a left back. And they've made Todibo permanent. The players they've left is Kudus, Fabianski, Kufal, Ings, Cresswell, and Antonio. There are more, but I thought these were the key ones. The reason for finishing 13th is I think they've cleared too much culture icons, if that makes sense. So when any striker West Ham have brought recently, they're struggling, they've always been able to rely on Antonio. Antonio's always been the key to come in. Ings is struggling, Antonio will score. Areola's struggling, don't worry, Fabianski's a solid 7.5 out of 10 in goal. Kufal was a decent fullback as well. Cresswell was decent, but he was getting a little bit old. I believe they've got an okay manager. I think 13th is about where I think their max will be. Nothing too special, nothing too bad. Now, in 12th, I have Crystal Palace. Now, the players Palace have brought in is a player called Sosa and Benitez. Now, they've sold Well, they're not sold because I think they've got all for free. They've got Rob Holding and Schlupgon. They're like the two names that I could pick out really. And potentially if they sell Eze as well. The reason I put them 12th is Palace are on such a high right now. And I think they have one of the better managers in the league, to be honest. So I don't think he will prioritise Europe and forget about the Premier League. I think he's good enough a manager to not let standards slip. And it could be lower, 12. They could be lower than 12 if they do not replace Eze. They need to replace Eze if he leaves. Or
Try to keep hold of
in
him.
11th place, I've got who's it going to be? I've got Nottingham Forest. Now the players I brought in is Angus Gunn, meh, Ndoye, who's a decent winger, Chunya, who's a centre back, and Igor Jesus, who scored the winner against PSG. They've sold Matt Turner, Danilo, Elanga, and Sosa. Now, the reason I think they will finish 11th is because I believe Nuno's system is going to get found out. They really struggle to break a team down. They normally only score their goals in transition, like on the counter attack. After last season's performances, I don't think they can rely on players like Chris Wood anymore. All right, if Chris Wood still gets 10 goals, that's still really good. But I believe can't rely on him. Can't really rely on your goalkeeper facing that many shots constantly. And I believe European football will derail them and potentially Nuno gets sacked by February. Maybe. Okay, in 10th, I've gone for Brighton. Now, the players Brighton have brought in, they've brought in Maxim de Cooper, Boss Cagley, who is, in my opinion, a very good defender. I really like him a lot. Coupler, Costellas, and Tom Watson. Players they've sold is Estupinian, Evan Ferguson's gone out on loan, Adingra, João Pedro, and Valentin Barco. Reason for them getting 10th is that Brighton is a well-run club and has, in my opinion, a high potential manager. A manager who can go on to manage Arsenal, Liverpool, Bayern, them sort of teams. I believe they'll replace the players well with the remaining time of the season, remaining time in the transfer window. They could potentially lose Belieber, but let's be honest, they're just going to generate another £100 million midfielder anyway. And that is why I believe Brighton will finish 10th. I could get a lot of stick for this one, but I have put Newcastle in 9th. I think the players they've brought in, Elanga, Aaron Ramsdale, and Thawar from AC Milan. The players they've sold is Dubravka, Sean Longstaff, and Wilson. I think it's going to be a repeat of a couple seasons ago when they were in the Champions League. I don't think they've got the depth. They're constantly getting their transfer targets taken from them. And I just don't think they've done enough in the window. There's not enough depth. If one of their midfielders get injured, you've got Lewis Miley to come in. That's really it. Same with their defenders, their fullbacks, everything. Like, there's not really a lot of cover there. And obviously, with Isak refusing to play at the moment, who's another player who could potentially be sold, they don't have the depth up top with losing Callum Wilson and Isak refusing to play. But that is why I put them in 10th. 9th. Everton are going to be my team in 8th. Oh, hold on. Not there. There. Everton at 8th for me, purely because of the players they've brought in. Jack Grealish, who will ball out for them. Dewsbury Hall, cheap as well, 28 mil. As new, 9 mil. Mark Travers, backup goalkeeper to Pickford, so Pickford doesn't have to play every minute. And then the man I'm looking forward to playing, Barry. Big Bazzer up top. 30 mil they paid for him. The players that notable players for me that have left. Ashley Young, consistent player. Doucouré, who I've always thought is one of their better players. Calvert-Lewin, who just couldn't stay fit, and Michael Keane. Now, the reason for them getting 8th, for me, is all about David Moyes. They were already solid defensively. They just needed a little bit of flair in the attack. And Grealish, Grealish is all about flair. Barry, who I'm really excited to see. Hopefully he'll score goals. But if not, Beto started scoring goals last season. So they've got a striker, they've got a backup striker and a striker that both want to start. So hopefully that keeps them both hungry and Everton will fly up the table. And they've also signed a solid midfielder in Dewsbury Hall. A robust midfielder that I don't think gets injured that often. Now in 7th, could get slaughtered for this as well, but I've gone for Aston Villa. Now the players they brought in Gusand from Nice, 30 mil, Ozcan and Bizet, who's a goalkeeper. Now the players they've not sold anyone of note, in my opinion. They've still got their massive core of players from last season. And the reason I think they'll finish 7th is because of that core of players, as well as having a top tier manager. I think 7th, I think they could get higher than 7th, but it all depends on where they go in Europe. Personally, I think they're going to go very far in Europe because they're in the Europa League. I think they could get like semis, maybe even a final. But yeah, that's why I've got them 7th. If they're out early in Europe, I'm thinking 4th or 5th. Next up, we have Spurs. Spurs in 6th. No one would have ever thought that. The players they brought in is Palinha, Kudus. They signed Danso on a permanent and Tell on a permanent, which, I mean, they're like signings in themselves. Notable players leaving is Son. I mean, Son was past his best last season. It was actually a little bit painful watching him. I think they'll have massive improvement for Ange. I mean, they literally can't have a worse one because they will go down. They have a more tactical manager now, in my opinion. A better manager than Ange. Younger players have more experience. For example, Archie Gray and Bergvall, they have more experience now. They've got European experience. They've got trophy experience as well. But I think they will go out early in Europe, to be honest. Either the group stage or the qualifying round. But I do see them having like Carabao Cup run like they did last season. In 5th, I've gone for Man United. Now, Man United is a bit of a difficult one because they've signed Sesko and Buemo, Diego Leon, and Cunha. Now, the players that have left are Rashford, Evans, Ericsson, Lindelof, and there's still potential in Sancho, Garnacho, and a few others to go. But I think they will come 5th due to the manager being able to get his system across and also not having to rely on 3-goal a season Rasmus Højlund and 3-goal a season Xerxes. He's got firepower up top now. And he's not just having to rely on Bruno. As well as having no Europe. I can see that really helping in the Prem. And I think they would do well in the FA Cup as well. I think they'll get quite far in that. Now, this is where it all goes tits up. I've got Arsenal in 4th. Now, there is a reason for this. The players they brought in is Gyökeres, Mosquera, Madueke, Norgard, Zubimendi, and Kepa, and potentially Eze, because he's linked as well. The players out are Tomiyasu, Tierney, Jorginho, and Thomas Partey. Arsenal need to answer about that, really. But the reason I believe they will finish 4th is I think they will be in a title race until January, right? Maybe February. But I believe that Arteta will be that desperate to win a trophy that I think he will throw the league. I think he'll try more in the League Cup and the FA Cup. And then, like in January onwards. And then I think March, April, I think he'll go full force into the Champions League. I don't think they're going to be looking for the league this season. I think they'll be looking for other cup competitions because he desperately needs a trophy, as well as the Champions League. Now, the club I've got finishing 3rd are Chelsea. Now, the players Chelsea have brought in Hato, who's a very good young fullback. He can also play centre half as well. Very good player. Gittins, again, very good player. Pays, who I don't know anything about. João Pedro, very good. He basically paid back his money already in the Club World Cup. Sarr, Delap, and Esugo. The players they sold of note: Broja, Ugachukwu, Giyu, Dewsbury Hall, João Felix, Madueke, Petrovic, Kappa. And the reason I think they're finishing third is because of one man and one man only: Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer turns everyone from a 6 out of 10 to a minimum 7.5, 8 out of 10. And I think they've got enough covers. They've got enough player cover and enough firepower that I wouldn't be surprised if you see Chelsea go very deep in all competitions this season. I can even see them like 90th minute winner in the Champions League sort of season. You know how they've not always been great in the league and then won the Champions League. I could also see that type of season. But yeah, that's why Chelsea's in third for me. In second for me is Liverpool. Now, the players Liverpool brought in: Ekitike, Kirkes, Verts, Frimpong, potentially Isak as well. Could be some others. The players they've sold are Nunes, Tyler Morton, Diaz, Kwanzaa, Kelleher, Trent. The reason for them finishing second is that I believe there's too much new in the defense. I think the fullbacks could get caught out if they don't know the system perfectly. Like if Kirkes is going up when Frimpong's meant to be going up, or both going into midfield and they get hit over the top, like they might not fully understand the system yet. As well as they don't have a lot of depth. They don't have a lot of depth in centre back or holding midfielder. Like their centre back cover is the holding midfielder, which doesn't make sense to me that much. Also, Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah will slow down this season. I'll guarantee it. That at that age where everything's starting to get a little bit harder to do. But I do think Liverpool will win an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup, which brings us on to our league champions, Manchester City. The players Man City brought in James Trafford, Naipan, Rangers, I don't know how you say his name, Cherky and Aït-Nouri. The players they've let go: Jack Grealish, Victor Rice, Perone, Walker, Kevin De Bruyne. Now, the reason I believe we will win the league is that it will be a last dance for most of these players and potentially the manager. But I think with the addition of the new coaches, Pep Lingers and Kolo Touré, I think the speed of the attack will be a lot more PSG-like. There'll be a lot of straight sprint at the defense instead of stand, look up, pass. I think they're going to be up in the tempo constantly this season. And also, we're not going to have Kyle Walker causing howlers every single game, i.e. Juventus, Arsenal, loads of games. And that is it. So I'll give you a quick rundown. We've got Burnley in 20th, Leeds 19th, Brentford 18th, Sunderland 17th, Fulham 16th, Wolves 15th, Bournemouth 14th, West Ham 13th, Palace 12th, Forest 11th, Brighton 10th, Newcastle 9th, Everton 8th, big boy Everton there, Aston Villa 7th, Spurs 6th, Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, and then Manchester City, the champions. That's going to be the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy, please like down below. Don't forget to subscribe. And yeah, we're going to be going more into football content this season, as well as FC content. So enjoy. I'm out. Peace.